Perfect. Yeah.
Good afternoon, students, for today's session of SAP. Just hold on, we are starting it. It will start in a minute. Yes, sir, you can continue with your class, sir.
Kunal, I need a small help.
Yes,
Just
sir.
before the session, we had a question. I happened to forget that question. If you
Okay.
can retrieve that question, can you please do that?
So which question,
So,
sir?
sir, just a moment, Kunal.
Sure.
Sir, the question was the table regarding the table.
Okay. I remember.
Yes.
Uh, Basically, you need not have to remember the tables, but it is enough for you to know that. Just hold on. Mm, When we were discussing about the ECC and the HANA, where was it? Yeah. So in the SAP ECC system, you had Oracle as a database. So how did Oracle store the data? It was in the form of tables. SAP was storing the data in the form of tables. And you saw for each different data, I mean to say, when you have to look at the master data of a chart of accounts, or maybe say customer master data, the vendor master data, or the GL master data, you had different tables storing this specific data. Okay. Probably at this point in time, you need not remember what kind of tables store what kind of data, but you want me to show you how you reach a specific table. I will do so. Log into the SAP system. Just a moment. It's logging in. Okay, we'll just wait. In the meantime, we will proceed with the next topic. Let the system open and I will show it. It's still opening. Okay. So we understood the concept of tolerance group. And I really don't know if there is any reference to this particular topic in your course content. But as you saw, without this information, SAP not will not accept any kind of data. It will simply stop, because this is a very vital information which the consultant has to provide. Anyway, this is SAP system has opened. So the place where you reach the table is your SE16. Enter. Please do not try all this. Okay. So I said you have your BKPF. What is a BKPF? It is your header table. I'll just make a note of it in my Excel sheet. Just hold on. Now you have what was I about to say? SE16 is your transaction code. You do not, please do not venture into all this. Okay. Now, so each data contains a different table, and your table contains fields. BKPF is your header table. Your BSEG is your line item table. So as you could see, SAP had its own way to identify the fields. For example, your company code was called by the SAP system by a different technical name. All right, so you should be, I mean, I wouldn't say that you should be thorough with all this, but at this point in time, it is more than enough if you know that there are different kinds of tables having different kinds of information. For example, your BKPF is your header table and your BSEG is your line item table. It is a standard. The standard doesn't change from system to system. Okay, this is as far as your journal vouchers or your documents are concerned. When it comes to the vendors and the customers, it is a different set. Clear? Now, so the tolerance group we just discussed, so that what does a tolerance group do? It is mandatory. This also is a mandatory creation by the consultant, without which you cannot carry out any kind of a transaction. Clear? Now, so you could see the technical names. I have come back to the, so your document number is referred to by the technical name BELNR. Okay, so I can give the document number. So I can pull out the relevant information pertaining to only that particular document number. See? Clear? So it says I have used the transaction code FB08. This is a reversal document. So like this, or if I want to have a whole list, I can simply give the company. In my company code, I want to retrieve a set of documents. See, so it pulls out all the documents pertaining to the company code GM0. Clear? This is how we saw the table. Clear so far? And this is, do not have to experiment too much on this because this is actually a technical information. And your SE16 and all these are your technical transaction codes. It is not your functional transaction codes. But since I just came across this reference to the BKPF and things like that, I just showed you how the data is getting stored in the SAP system. Right now, so the tolerance group, we just saw that it is a mandatory creation created by the finance consultant only. There is no other consultant who's responsible for creating the tolerance group. Clear? So we understood what the tolerance group does. What does it do? It sets the limits for which a particular employee or the end user in the organization can transact. So we also saw we created a group called clerks. Okay, and I included myself in the tolerance group and I set up a limit of 5 lakh rupees. So when I try to enter a transaction greater than 5 lakhs, the system stopped. And you saw that message also. So this is how your tolerance groups works. Yeah. So this is a concept of tolerance group. So based on your client's requirements, you create those many tolerance groups in the organization and you assign the specific users, a set of clerks to the clerical group, a set of employees to the managerial group. All right, so the consultant creates as many tolerance groups as the organization requires and assigns specific users based on their position in the company, and that is how the system behaves. Now, our next topic of discussion, we are getting into another area of finance module, which is your accounts payable and your accounts receivable. So even before that, let me repeat. All these 10 items, what you see, the ones in the block letters, which I have highlighted. Let me highlight that. All these 10 points, they are the creation of a consultant. You saw the company code, chart of accounts, your fiscal year variant, your posting period variant, your account groups, your retained earnings account, your field status variant, your document types and your document number ranges, your posting keys, and your tolerance groups. These are the building blocks for completing the company code definition in your SAP system. Without any one of this, be assured that SAP will stop you from transacting. It will not allow you to carry out any postings. Yeah. Now, our second area of your finance module. Okay. Your accounts payable and your accounts receivable module, submodule. So what does your accounts payable deal with? Vendors. Your AR module deal with customers. Now, for our learning, what is it that we are going to do? All right, we are not going to talk about the integration side in the very beginning. This we will take it as a part of your finance, and then we will learn this module. Okay, submodule rather. So both your vendors and your customers start with creation of the individual master data. So in your AP submodule, you create the vendor master data, and in your AR submodule, you create the customer master data. Only from the finance perspective. Okay, now after creation, so what do you do while creating? Just hold on. So we create the vendor and the customer master data pertaining to the finance module only. Okay, now when we look at the integration, we will see how we can extend the same vendor master data or your customer master data to your purchase module and to your sales module. Okay, that will come at a later stage. Okay, let us wait for that. Now, so we are going to create the master data strictly from the finance perspective. After the creation of the master data, what do? We start transacting. Okay. Invoices. Now is the concept of a thing called as your reconciliation account. Concept of reconciliation account. What is this concept? What is a reconciliation account? So normally you would have got used to the term reconciliation, probably say during your BRS or some other thing, right? Bank reconciliation. So what is the meaning of the term reconciliation? You reconcile between your bank book and your cash book. You arrive at the balances, find out the differences. That is what you are normally used to. Set out the differences. Does the word reconciliation mean the same in SAP? No. Now, let me assume that you have a very big organization and you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of vendors and hundreds of customers. Okay, now the top management wants to know your sundry creditors and your sundry debtors balances. How would you achieve it? You have hundreds of vendors, hundreds of customers. So to you have the concept of sundry creditors and your sundry debtors. So your reconciliation account is a concept of you linking up and arriving at your sundry creditors and your sundry debtors. So what is a reconciliation account in SAP? It is a simple general ledger account created in your chart of accounts. This also is a simple balance sheet account created in SAP, just like you have created any other general ledger account. Do you have a standard? Do you have a, just like you had, where did we have a standard reconciliation account? Remember when we discussed about the retained earnings account? You had 9 lakh as your GL account, which was created by SAP itself. Do you remember this? Similarly, SAP has a standard sundry creditors GL account identified by 1,60,000 and your sundry debtors reconciliation account is identified by your 1,40,000. Where do you use these general ledger accounts? Okay, that is a question we will see when we look at the master data creation of a customer and a vendor. Right now, let me just get into the SAP system. Just hold on. We'll get into the study content also, so that it gives you more clarity in whatever we are going ahead with. I'll get into the consulting screen. I want to remove one thing. Let me remove that. This is your now. We are slowly getting into this concept now, EAR and AP, customer account, vendor accounts, and here we are going to study. Okay, but as this is your IMG, are we going to concentrate here? Not at all. We are going to concentrate on these particular. So you have AR, AP, you have the same options, document entry, document. Okay, so we'll see how this works. Now, I will open the study content also. So whatever you are seeing here, the business processes, order to cash, procure to pay. Now, whatever we are going to learn, these concepts, your procure to pay, order to cash, plan to produce, They are an extension of what we are learning now, your AP and your AR submodules. Okay. Probably you may not have understood the meaning of the statement which I made, but I will let you. So we'll come to the accounts receivable and accounts closing. The closing things will come to it a little later. So your accounts payable business process. We'll take up AP first. Create a vendor account. What do you mean by the statement? What is the objective? Creation of a master data. So in your accounts receivable, you're going to create a customer master record. Maintain vendor master data at 3 different levels. Learn to make simple vendor account transactions. Identify how the reconciliation account works in the chart of accounts. Run an automatic payment program. Now, even before we have a look at this, let me go to the SAP system and show you how the reconciliation account, which I mentioned, 1,60,000, 1,60,000 and 1,40,000. What is the difference between these two general ledger accounts and your ordinary general ledger accounts? Ordinary in the sense we created the expense account and the bank account. OK, now the thing what I'm going to show you is a reconciliation account, the meaning of which I will come to it a little later. General ledger. Now, what did I say? 140000. Now this screen is very common to you, correct? If I go to the control data tab, the place where I'm moving the cursor, you will see that it is a reconciliation account for account type. So basically in your SAP system, you have the concept of reconciliation for 3 different types of accounts. One is your customer account, one is your vendor account, the other one is your asset account. If you see the drop down, see assets, customer, vendors. So normally these are the different types of accounts for which we have the concept of the reconciliation account. Do I see this in any other accounts? 113, 100. Do you see? It is blank. It is a bank account and it is blank. You can take up any. Clear? So no other general ledger account will be having this particular reconciliation account for type. Now, if I say 1,60,000 is for vendors. Earlier you saw 1,40,000. It was for the customers, and now for 1,60,000 you see that it is for a vendor that you will be having a reconciliation account. Now, what do I mean by this? You can read the help from SAP itself. I have pressed F1. The reconciliation account ensures the integration of a subledger into the general ledger. So what is a subledger here? It is your vendor account. And what is a general ledger account? You have your 1,40,000 or your 1,60,000. Can you see the reference 1,40,000? GL account 1,40,000 is defined as a reconciliation account for the customer. So the meaning of this line is it is for you to achieve your sundry creditors and your sundry debtors information. Clear? And if you saw the, just for your interest, if you saw the field status group, it is of the category reconciliation account. I will enter 1,40,000. It is for customers, and you can see the same field status group. So whatever is the nature of this particular GL account, it is identified by this. Clear? So we understood fairly to a good extent about your reconciliation account. But where do we practically make use of this? This reconciliation account is made use of when we are creating the individual customer and your individual vendor master data. Clear? Now, if I open, for example, I go to AP, since I've opened the accounts payable in the study in your course content, you saw there was a reference about 3 different levels. What do I understand by that? I would display an existing vendor. So whenever I open a screen pertaining to the vendor or your customer master data, can you see this general data and your company code data? These are the 2 different levels what you can view the individual master records. Where am I? I am in the vendor master record and your transaction code is FK03. A K stands for vendors. Now, if I want to see all the 3 levels of the data which was mentioned in your course content, what do I mean by the 3 levels? Now you just saw the 2 levels. One is your company code level of information, I mean the general data information, and your company code level of information, which is more than enough for us to understand how the submodules work. But why was there a mention of 3 different levels? Where did you see the 3 different levels? Can you see data at 3 different levels? The second point, maintain vendor master data at 3 different levels. What do I mean by 3 different levels? I showed you the 2 different levels. Do not worry. Now, in another transaction, what was the earlier transaction? It was FK03. Now it is XK03. Don't bother about what this transaction code is. Can you see the 3 different levels now? One is your general data information, the company code level information, and your purchasing organization information. This particular information is useful when you're creating a vendor or your customer master data for your integration. So integration means I'm talking about the FI module talking to the MM module in case of the vendor, and FI module talking to the sales and distribution module for the customer. Only when I'm talking about the integration, this particular level of information, purchasing organization data as far as a vendor is concerned, and the sales organization data as far as the customer is concerned. I will show you the three levels of the customer. Simple. XD03. D stands for customer. Can you see the sales area? The general information and the sales area information, where you have organizational entities created by your SD module. It is not our area. So I just brought you to the screen for you to understand the three different levels. Nothing more than that. As far as our learning is concerned, three different levels. Three levels of data. One is the company code. And as far as your customer is concerned, it is your sales organization level of information. So these are the three different levels which you can view the individual masters. But for us, these two levels of information is more than enough for us to understand the concept of your FI, AR, FI, AP. This comes into your picture only when you're talking about your FI MM integration and your FI SD integration. When you talk about the integration, you are going to talk about this area of data, or else we are more than happy with only these two levels of information. So you will be in a much better position to understand what is the data contained within these two levels. And for our finance module, this area of data is we are the owners. If you talk about any customer or your vendor master data, we as finance consultants are responsible for the company code level of information, because this is the area which contains finance related information. Clear? So did we understand? I mean, reasonably good enough about how the data probably could look like in SAP? Don't worry. We'll be creating the individual masters. Don't worry. Okay. This area we will not be doing because I need to have a lot of information from the MM and SD modules, which I do not have. Okay. Because these people, they will be creating their own entities, like you saw the sales area, purchase or area, so which I wouldn't be knowing. Okay. So normally, even in your live scenario, it is good to know, but not mandatory enough, mandatory to get this information. You're not the owners of this data. So what point I was trying to tell you is, in your project scenario, SAP project scenario, you create your vendor master data and your customer master data in combination with your respective consultants. It is a combination of your FI and MM consultants. This is a combination of your FI and your sales and distribution module P. So this is how your live projects they work. You're responsible for this level of data, and they are responsible for this level of data. And for the general data, anybody can be the owner because the information is very, very generic. Probably this contains the general information of a customer and a vendor, like Measure C Limited, his address, his phone number, contact number. So all this information, they form a part of your general data. Okay. So either your FI consultant or your SG or your MM consultant can be responsible for your general data information. All right. Was this understood? I'll take you into the system. Don't worry. But I was just trying to make you familiar with the terms what you're seeing here. Okay. Now basically you would have understood what a reconciliation account means. It is nothing but your sundry creditors and your sundry debtors account. Just know that. Okay. How the integration between your subledger and your subledger is nothing but your vendor or your customer, and to the general ledger account. That we'll talk about it later. See, it has got the general data, the company code specific information, and your this is pertaining to company code 1000. This is pertaining to company code 2000. Company code A, company code B. Clear? So each vendor or your each customer has the general information at the client level, in the sense at the topmost level. Okay. And you have your company code specific information in this layer of data, and your MM related data, your purchasing organization information in your purchase organization data level. Okay. So these are the three levels: 1, 2, and 3. Similarly, you see that in the customer also. Instead of purchasing organization, it is going to be sales organization. That's it. So this is what we saw now. Just now we saw this. So as I said, he is also, your course content is also very much interested only in your finance level information. How do I conclude that? Why did I make that statement? See, it has only two levels of data. One is your general data. The other one is your company code data. Do you see the purchasing organization data? You don't see. And that is exactly the reason as to why I made the statement that these two levels of the data is more than enough for us to understand how things flow in the individual submodules. And how is FI getting into this particular submodules? Clear? So here again, can you see something called as your account groups? I'll just make a note of it in my Excel sheet also. 3 levels. Okay, so you had the GL account groups, correct? Where you had your cash account group, you had your asset account group, you had your GL account group, you had your customer account group, you had your vendor account group, correct? Where the GLs were categorized or they were classified. You remember that or not? This was the point I am referring to. You remember this? The same thing is applicable to your customer and your vendor also. Now, why would you have accounts? To classify the nature of vendor, in the sense I'm just giving you a small example. So let me say your business classifies your vendors and customers like import vendors, where you're importing your raw materials or importing your plant and machinery, whatever. And you have export customers, where you export your finished product to the US or maybe to a customer in Germany or maybe to a customer in France. And you have your local vendors. You may have other ways of categorizing your customers and vendors also. What is a common feature or the common point on which you can categorize your customers or vendors? You may classify your vendors and customers based on the volume of business. You may again categorize your You may categorize your customers and vendors like this. Small time customers or vendors who are doing business which amounts to less than 10 lakhs. Between 10 lakhs and 25 lakhs, you categorize them as your medium priority customers. And your high priority customers are those who are giving you a business of greater than 25 lakhs. So you may have any kind of a criteria for you to categorize your vendors and customers. I'm just giving you two examples. One, I said import vendors, export customers, local vendors, local customers. And here you have, based on the volume of business, you have categorized your vendors and customers. So you can have any criteria based on what is the requirement of your customer X Limited. You are going to have these many account groups. What does the account group do? Categorization. Categorize or classify your vendors and customers. They are basically done through your vendor account groups or your customer account groups. Clear? So now I think we have already gone through. Let me bring the invoices a little later. So these informations, they form the information as far as your master data is concerned. Your reconciliation account, your account groups, they form the master data information of your customer or your vendors. Let us go back to the study content. He has already come out with a demo and a practice. Okay, let's go through it. So what is the aim of this particular session? Foreign employee to arrive next month who is spending a year. Okay, simply he wants to create a master record for a vendor. That is all. The whole story is that. So he has to create a vendor. Just see the process. Just see the process. I'll take you through this in a more detailed way. So he says your landlord 02 will be the identification. So did you see the account group? Now we will enter the account group vendor. He has created some account group called VEND. You can see all these screens when I take you into the SAP system. So he's creating one Mr. Smith with the code landlord 02. See, he's giving all the general information as regards Mr. Smith. Can you see something very familiar there in your reconciliation account? You saw 1,60,000. This is a standard process of SAP. So there was a vendor by name Mr. Smith created with the code landlord02. Okay. Again, here in this case, you have the concept of your external and your internal number range. For you to create the customers and the vendors, just like you had when you created documents, you had external and your internal number range. Similarly, for you to create your vendors and your customer, you have your external and your internal number range. Now, one question. You saw Mr. Smith being created with the code landlord02. Correct? Now, how did Mr. Smith get that particular landlord02? SAP did not create landlord02. It was given by the user. I will tell you. This is where your external number range comes into picture. Somebody asked me when I was talking about the external and the internal number range. Somebody asked me, maybe say when that particular topic was going on, what is the use of the external number range and how do we use it? When do we use it? Or where do we use it? Typically, when we create our own employees as vendors, why do we create our own employees as vendors? Any idea? Suppose my CFO or any other employee is drawing a loan from the company. How do you keep track? So he's created as some entity within the SAP system, and he has to be see my vice president or my CFO or somebody doesn't want to be identified by some code, by some numbers 100010110010. He doesn't want. He wants to be identified by his name. Just now you saw Mr. Smith was getting the code landlord02. Something very similar. Let us say you have Mr. Sunil as our CFO. So Mr. Sunil doesn't want to get identified by a number or something. He wants to get identified by his name. So here your external number range comes into picture. Normally, you may or may not use the concept of external number range when it comes to the documents. But when it comes to for this particular purpose, your customer or your vendor, you would definitely make use of this particular concept of the external number range. Clear? So this is where should I'll just make a external and internal number range. So whenever you're creating your vendor master or your customer master, you can actually make use of your external or your internal number, however you want. however the circumstance, whatever the circumstances demand. Clear? So here again, whenever you're talking about a transaction with a vendor or a customer, you have the concept of your header master data and your line items. Your GL account items, they are referred to as a line items, and your general information is referred to as a header data. This is how your vendor invoice screen looks like. Don't worry, I will show it to you live on the SAP system. Not to worry. Okay. Now, let us go to the demonstration demo. So any other general information what I wanted to give. So normally we create the vendor with a transaction code FK01. You can also create by the code, sorry. Your FD01 or your XD02 is for creation. Your FK02 is for display, is for changing, sorry, editing the master data. FK03 is for your display, creation, edit, display, master. These are the transactions which we will be looking at. Okay. We are going to keep silent about these two. Okay. But during the course of the session, I'm going to show you this. I think I've already showed it to you. Okay. So for us, we'll be more interested to tackle these two levels of the individual master data. Clear? Now, what does this do? This reconciliation concept is for linking the individual subledger, which could be your individual vendor or your individual master or your individual customer, to the general ledger. Probably the statement you will not understand. I will tell you. Okay. We also saw how we construct this GL account. What is this 1,60,000 and 1,40,000? It is nothing but your general ledger account, which is of a nature balance sheet, which is of the type recon account, reconciliation. Clear? So we saw this 1,40,000 being marked as your reconciliation account for customers, and you saw 1,60,000 as reconciliation account for vendors. Clear? This is about a brief insight into what we have in our accounts payable and your accounts receivable. And we have invoices to be entered. Where do we enter the invoices? I will show it to you. We have payments to be received, payments to be made, payments to be made to the vendor, payments to be received from the customer. Clear? And probably, I think this is more than enough. And we have a concept of something called as a house bank, which I'm going to tell you when I take up this particular invoices. When I enter the transactions, you will see. Okay. What do we see here? Okay, let me take you to the demo. See, why I'm stressing on this demo and practice is even before you start doing your start working on the SAP system, you will see or you will get a feel of what you can expect. Okay, what you are expected to do. It will give you a feel. See, here simply the thing is entering a vendor invoice. That is all. Tomorrow, we are going to spend the whole time in seeing all this. So you do not have to worry how we are going to look at this. Don't worry. All right. I could have as well shown this to you right now, but let it happen in a flow. Because half an hour time wouldn't be enough for me to start this topic. Just have a look at this and probably we will take it later. Maybe so tomorrow we will look at it. All these concepts could be a little, as somebody rightly said yesterday, confusing. Not to worry. All you'll have to understand is the connection, how the flow is happening. So probably don't trouble yourself in trying to understand what this is. Tomorrow again, we are going to have a look at it. So that should not be an issue. So what does this demo have? You receive a service invoice. Okay. He's talking about some. I'm just keeping silent because I don't want to explain anything. Once I open up, starting from the master data creation, the flow will be It will be continuous. There'll absolutely be uh, no confusions, I hope. Just know or as to what you are going to face from tomorrow. Okay, just be prepared just by looking at the screens.
Sir,
Yes, Kunal.
can we take a 5 minutes break? Actually, students are asking for that.
Sure, Kunal, we can do that.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Just
Okay, sir.
let this slide finish and then we will take a
Okay,
break.
sir. Okay, sir. Sure, sir.
Anyway, actually, this as I'm telling, this may not make
Yes, sir.
any. This cannot be. I don't expect the students to have understood this, but anyway.
Yes, sir. Even, sir, one more student has asked GMS. So
What is
I
that, Kunal?
already GMS, Java Messaging Services.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I already said that it is an integrated part. You can do that.
Uh,
It is possible.
okay, yeah. See, as I said, it is only how SAP talks to the third-party tools. Okay. Okay, I will, because students may get confused. I'll just, we can break.
Student, right now we are taking a break of 5 minutes. By 3:35, we will join again.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, Kunal, I am back.
Sure, sir. We can start the session.
Yeah. So just going through the Q&A section, I happen to see a question. How a tolerance group needs to be created? As I said, creation is done by a consultant and it is not your job to create a tolerance group. But just because the question is asked, I will definitely take you to a place where the consultant creates the tolerance groups. And as I said, even before, till the point in time I showed you people that there is a concept of tolerance groups. There was nothing displayed in the system also regarding the tolerance groups. Do you agree with me? So I had even carried out the postings even before telling you what a tolerance group is. Correct? But now do you see the importance of tolerance group? It was all happening in the silently in the background because the settings were already done by the consultant. And again, you do not have to create a tolerance because the question is asked. I'll be taking you through it. Just show you the place. I don't think you'll be having access to SPRO also. I think it is better also because maybe it could lead to a lot of confusions. See, here is your tolerance. In your consultants menu, here is your tolerance groups, where you create the tolerance group and you assign it to a user. OK, this is the place where we, and I also saw a question regarding to the reconciliation account. So your reconciliation account is nothing but how does the top management know it's sundry debtors or in your sundry creditors in your statement of accounts? As you're all CMA, you're going to be CMA graduates. Your balance sheet will always reflect this figure, right? Your sundry debtors and your sundry creditors. It is your liabilities and your assets. Sundry creditors is your liability. Sundry debtors is your assets. Correct? So sundry debtors is what you're supposed to receive. So sundry creditors is what you're supposed to pay. So now if you have 100 vendors or thousands and thousands of vendors, how will you know how much you need to pay to the vendors? Vice versa. If you have hundreds and hundreds of customers, how will you know what is the amount that you need to receive from your customers? Correct? So this is what is reflected in your balance sheet. So how does SAP help you to get this figure? Your sundry creditors or your sundry debtors? What is the mode in which SAP gives you this data? It is through a concept called as your reconciliation account. It forms a link between your vendor and your GL account. Clear? You may not have clarity about the statement as of now, but tomorrow when I open out the vendor master list and when I create uh, a master record for a vendor and for a customer, you will see the difference. You will see the meaning of this. Clear? Did I miss out on any other question? Okay, somebody wants to have a recap of your field status variant. Okay. What is the installation cost? It depends on the number of modules what the client wants to implement. Okay. First point. Second point, how many users are going to be using the SAP system? This defines the total cost of your SAP product. The licensing fees and your number of modules which the client decides to implement. Now, somebody wanted to have a recap of your field status variant. So what is a field status variant? Controls the transaction screen in SAP. What do I mean by this? Now, and how does, so suppose I want to control the, let me open a screen. Now I want to, let me go back to the easy access screen. Now, if I open the data entry screen for a journal voucher, you're very familiar with the screen. No problems. Now in the screen, let me assume I want to make the text field for the journal voucher. I want to make the text field as mandatory. Clear? I want to make this as mandatory. Till now, you saw me, I didn't enter the text at all. Clear? For any of the transactions, I never entered the text. Now I want to make this as mandatory. How do I make this as mandatory? I go to the consultants menu. Go to the, first I need to understand in which company code I want to make this particular text field as mandatory. In my company code. I'm not bothered about the other companies. Now, the first and the foremost thing is I need to understand to which field status variant my company code is assigned to. My company code GM01 is assigned to which field status variant? It is assigned to the field status variant GM01. Perfect. Now I would want to tweak the system or change the system so that I make the text field as mandatory. Whenever I enter a journal voucher, I want the user to enter some text. Clear? This is the place where the consultant would have defined the field status variant. See, I am in the consultant screen. I am in the IMG screen. So I'm just exemplifying as to how a field status variant looks like. So I have reached my field status variant. I will go to the groups. Go to G00 clear consumption. Okay. I'll make the text as required. Save. So now what I'll do, I'll get into the transaction. Okay. I'll re-enter the transaction. Because whenever you want to make changes and you want the changes to be reflected, you go out of the screen and you exit out of the window and come in again. An entry is required for the item text field. It is required. So that is how this is what your field status variant helps us with. So once the consultant has created the field status variant, he goes and assigns it to the company code. And within that particular company code, within that particular field status variant, he will set up the screen in such a way that is required by the end users of that particular department. Understood? So in some projects, the text field may not be required. See, where is it pointing to? So this is how you can change. Earlier, when I transacted in the morning, I have used the same general ledger account, right? Did it ask me for the text field? No, I have made the changes just now. Okay, based on the requirement, based on the new requirement from the end user. And accordingly, I have changed the behavior of the transaction screen. This is how your field status variant works. Further, your field status variant contains the field status groups. And your field status groups forms an integral part of each and every general ledger account created in SAP. There can be no general ledger account without a reference to your field status group. So I hope you got a clear understanding as to how the field status variant behaves. So it simply allows the user, or it simply allows the consultant to change the transactional screen behavior. I just took a small example where the text field in your journal voucher, it has to be in required entry. So that is the reason as to why I have made this text field. As you can see, I cannot skip this. If I want to save, it doesn't save. See, I pressed on save, but it didn't save. See, an entry is required. Till I give this information, it will not save. So this is how your system will behave. Yeah. This is about your field status groups and your field status variant. I hope things are understood. Reconciliation account. I think I have already explained the concept of reconciliation account. So please wait till tomorrow so that we have a clear insight into what is a reconciliation account. It is nothing but you are connecting your FI module to your AP or your AR submodule in the form of a reconciliation account. That is the first integration point. As far as I am concerned, your reconciliation account forms the first point of reconciliation between your first point of integration between your FI and your AP modules. Then later we will expand our understanding to FI and MM and FI and SD. Probably this can happen in the next week. Okay, but tomorrow we will talk about the reconciliation account. So we will see the flow of transactions in AP, and we will see what are the different kinds of reports what we can draw in accounts payable. And there is a very, very important concept in your SAP as far as your AP module is concerned, called as you saw something called an automatic payment program, right? Did we see something called as your automatic payment program? Outgoing payment. Okay. We'll also have a look at this. So, automatic payment program. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting and very, very critical. Because when you're talking about making payments to thousands and thousands of vendors, what is the point in you having a robust system like that of SAP without making this particular facility? Okay. So the system should be in a position to carry out the payments automatically. Let me add one more line. When do the payments have to be released? Ideally, forget SAP. I'm not talking about SAP at all. When do you make a payment to your vendor in your regular business? You can tell me Okay, when the goods are supplied, when when some activity X is done with some act, and you have your when you subject the goods to a quality test, and when all the goods qualify for that quality, everything said and done, everything is good. Don't you have something called as a credit period? So today my vendor is giving me or supplying some items. Okay. And I find that all the items what he has supplied is according to the purchase order, and the quality is also good enough. Do I immediately release the payment? What will I look at? Won't I look at the discount terms? Won't I negotiate with him? I will definitely negotiate now that I'll be making the payment only after 15 days. Only by 31st May, I'll release the payment. You have supplied items on the 15th or even 20th of May. I'll make a payment to you on the 31st of May. And if I make a payment within today, you have supplied the items. And if you have made a payment, if I make a payment to you within the 20th, what is a discount that I'm going to enjoy? So why I gave you this typical business example was SAP takes into consideration all these factors even before it carries out a payment to the vendor. It typically identifies the due date, whether the payment is actually overdue, whether I can enjoy a good discount if I make a payment within the certain period of time, within 5 days, within 10 days. Okay, so all these things are understood by the system and is rather it is understood by this program APP. See how beautifully SAP is coded. It takes into account all your discount terms. It also considers which are the invoices which are due. Suppose I have 10 invoices for a particular vendor. Are all the invoices due for payment? So there's one vendor, ABCD Limited. Okay. So I have 10 invoices. Are all the 10 invoices pending payment? Or are they overdue? No. So I allow the system to analyze what are the invoices that have to be paid. Okay. And I allow the system to understand this. Now you can see the power of this concept, APP, Automatic Payment Program. You can also call this as Automatic Payment Procedure. One of the most critical of all the operations as far as your AP submodule is concerned. I will tell you, I will show you all this. But even before this, we have something called as your house bank. So tomorrow we'll look at it. Slowly we'll learn, okay, about this automatic payment program. And even before we reach the stage, we'll have to understand so many things starting from the master data. Okay, so tomorrow we will start with the vendor master data and slowly we'll proceed as to how invoices are created, how do we make payments, how does the system identify the overdue items, how do we clear the items. Okay. Kunal, I think we can wind up the session for today.
Sir, there was one question. How can we change the password and tolerance group again?
Uh, Change the password. See, as I said, is it for the, are you entering the SAP for the first time? My first question is that. If the answer, if you're not entering the SAP system for the first time, the process is different. Now let me tell you, if at all you're logging in for the SAP system for the first time, there will be a password, there will be a default password which will be in your mail. You need to enter that. And after you enter the password, the system will prompt for you to enter a new password. So as I said, your password is case sensitive, and it could be a mix of numbers as well as alphabets. It is up to you. But please make a note of your passwords as it is confidential. And also, this is the first case. Now the second case, if at all you are already entered the SAP system, not for the first time. Okay. If you have given the password wrong password 3 times, the system gets locked. And there is no way that you can set the password. You will have to approach your system administrator, tell him your user ID, and he will reset your password. It is, you will not be having the access to change the password. I hope both the scenarios are understood.
Yes,
Kunal, was I clear?
Yes, sir. And the last question is, sir, they have asked 8 questions, but I think most of you have already answered. Only one
Okay.
question they are asking again, tolerance group.
What is that question, Kunal?
Tolerance group.
Tolerance group. Okay. Okay. Once again, explain how to create. See, as I said, do not bother about the creation. Try to understand the concept of try to understand the concept. Do not go about creating it. I said creation of anything new is prohibited. You are not allowed to create anything new because the course is, or the course does not allow you to create anything new. I'm simply showing you the consultant screen to make the subject more and more interesting. That is all. If I had not shown you the tolerance groups, you would not know, you would not have known the concept at all. So once again, I repeat, do not go about creating or understanding how to create a particular thing in SAP. That is not your concern. Please stick to whatever is required from you people. Okay. No problem. I can still show you how a consultant creates a tolerance group, but as I said, not at all required. Kunal, I hope I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
I hope I have taken up all the questions, Kunal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think we can wind up the session for today.
Sure, Kunal. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, students, for being with us. We will catch you tomorrow at 11 for the next session. Thank you, students.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.